Yeah, so immediately after our opening remarks, we're going to have a keynote, and that's going to start at 10:45. That's going to be delivered by Anton from Layers. Our challenges will then open up after the keynote, and they'll remain open until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Our ticket bot is available from now until about 9 p.m. today, in which time that will actually close. Our executives will actually be going to bed at a reasonable time tonight, and so they won't be able to answer questions until 10 o'clock. Oh, so 10 a.m. in the morning tomorrow, Eastern time. Connor will be going through shortly how the ticket bot works and what is expected in terms of the submissions after I'm done. Um, at 6 p.m. tomorrow, we'll begin our closing ceremonies, where we announce the winners and some interesting facts about the event. And a reminder that any team that consists of alumni is not eligible for prizes, unfortunately. So sorry, alumni. We hope you still love us, but thank you also for joining us today. Um, Between 4 and 5, we'll be hosting our sponsored panel, where our sponsors will have an opportunity to share with you a little bit about their companies, what opportunities they may have, and how to apply for them. And after the panel, there's actually going to be an opportunity for you to hop in breakout rooms, which are you probably have noticed them already because of the workshops. So those same rooms, what will happen is the sponsors will hop into them, and it'll be a forum essentially for you to ask them questions that you may have, and just talk with them if you'd like. And that's basically all there is to know in terms of the agenda for this weekend. And I mean that in a positive way, in that what we want you to focus on this weekend is the challenges, and not only the challenges themselves, but the problem solving, the team building, the communication skills that you'll develop, the frustration that you'll be feeling, and most importantly, the friendships that you'll be making along the way. I say that with certainty, as this has been my experience working with the exec team building this monstrosity of a CTF. Everyone on the team had a hand in building today's event, from the challenge building. So thank you to the challenge developers, Min, Christian, Connor, John, to the challenge testers. Thank you, Christian, and the entire content team for doing that. I know it it's quite an undertaking. Um, to our community manager, Jill, our amazing producer, and now fellow challenge developer, Jack. So that's right. Last night he had the opportunity to create his first challenge, and it made it onto the CTF for you guys to solve. So way to go, Jack. Um, Connor for organizing the sponsors, taking the lead on coordinating the challenge build, handling the event logistics, and the bajillion other things that you took on as part of your role. You did a phenomenal job, and we are very grateful for everything that you do. Um, for our sponsors, Layers, KPMG, Mandiant, Bell, Deloitte, Trend Micro, and Development. Thank you for creating such engaging workshops, for supporting us, believing in what we do, and really being role models for the future InfoSec professionals that we have for you. But really and truly, this event that we're here today would not be possible without two people. And I'd like to give a shout out to one individual who I already mentioned, and that is Min Jiang, who I knew is feeling one of probably three things. He's either tired and wants to go to bed if he's not sleeping in the middle of the call. Um, he's either terrified about uh, what you guys are going to do to his challenges, um, or he is ready to take on the battle of being bombarded with questions and provide you with support. So please be kind to him. Um, that said, for Min, I do note that one thing I'm completely certain about is that he will coach you along the way, teach you what he knows, and that's really because that's the kind of person he is. And he's probably one of the most clever person I met. So thank you, Min, for all the time and effort that you put in, it goes without saying, or sorry, it doesn't go without saying, um, that we appreciate you. And last but certainly not least, Kyle Doucette, my friend, you've stepped up to the plate. You've not only stepped up to it, you jumped on it, and when you did, you soared. You improved the infrastructure that we had. You were able to deal with complexities of transferring the challenges and the dependencies and complexities to the infrastructure, to building something special that we might be able to see a little bit later on, and I won't say what that is. Um, and you also helped me with fixing some CSS, which I appreciate because I know how much you hate CSS. Those long nights, the hard problems you solved. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say that enough. To both of to both of you guys, and to all the execs and our friends listening, thank you for what you do, because I sure as hell could not do it myself. All jokes aside, this is really what our club is all about: working in teams, solving problems, stepping outside our comfort zone, sharing what we've learned, and building friendships along the way. So while you're bashing your head against the keyboard because you don't see the detail preventing you from solving a challenge, or you're frustrated with the challenge malfunctioning, or you're mad that uh, uh, your competitive, y- the other teams that are competing with you may have passed you on the scoreboard. I just want you to remember why you're here. Yes, it is to flex your knowledge and maybe learn something new, but also to become a better communicator, a better problem solver, a team player, all skills that will aid you in your InfoSec career. And with that, I'd like to hand off the mic to Connor, who will run through the ticket bot and some general rules. So I just wanted to say good luck to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nash. Okay, yeah, so all of you should be able to see a little category directly below us, actually, a help category, and there's a tickets channel inside of there. So the ticket bot is very straightforward. All you have to do is press the open a ticket button that you see in there, and that will then create a separate channel that just you and the admins are able to see. So as soon as that's made, if you could just type into the new channel that's been made, explaining what challenge you're working on or what problem you're having, one of us will claim it, and then preferably, I mean, especially if it's something you're going to want to discuss with us, be in your team's voice channel already, because we're going to claim it probably pretty quickly, assuming we're available, and we're going to join your voice channel actually and talk with you about it directly. And so just as a general rule, because this is an extremely beginner-friendly event, a lot of these challenges are designed with novices in mind, or people that have never done a CTF before. So for anything that's marked as like an easy challenge, we're happy to give you a pretty good amount of guidance if you need help with it by creating a ticket. For medium ones, I mean, we're kind of just going to we can give you a bit of guidance or maybe a hint. For anything that's noted as hard, we can't give hints, but we can, like, you can ask if there's some sort of clarification or like a technical thing, we can clarify that, but we wouldn't be able to give you a specific hint or explanation about topics for hard questions specifically. The rest of them are fair game. And don't be afraid to, ask questions about easy ones if you're having problems. They're denoted as easy, but the thing with CTFs is a lot of it just comes down to what you know. It might not be really easy, or it might not be really hard. I mean, even for a hard question, if you know the technique, maybe it's not actually hard, but, learning the technique could be pretty complicated. CTFs in general are just kind of, they're almost like trivia or Jeopardy. Like, you see the same kind of questions on most events, and it really just comes down to what you know. And so, I mean, that really leads me into my next point of do not feel stressed or feel bad about yourself if you're a newcomer and you're not able to solve questions or you're not able to make progress. It does not mean that you're not smart, and it does not mean that you don't know what you're doing. It literally just means that you don't know the info yet, and that's the entire point of this event. You're gonna get to go through and Google topics, and these questions, you're going to see on a lot of other CTFs if you do continue to do them. Or I mean, you know, it's going to reinforce stuff you've learned in your classes. It's going to be stuff that you can talk about in an interview setting, you know, down the road. It's very, very important. So Google is absolutely going to be your best friend during this event. Please make use of it, and please, you know, learn how to use it properly, because I mean, it is, you're going to be using it for your entire career, unless some other crazy tool comes out. And yeah, so I guess my last point then would be, don't, you know, attack the infrastructure. Stuff is going to go wrong. I'm sure there are misconfigurations and challenges that we just haven't noticed. You know, I mean, we've developed a lot of challenges. There's a pretty high amount in here. I think there's about 80. I'm sure there are going to be problems. If you find a problem, please, you know, let us know. Challenges will go down. It does happen. There's a announcements channel called, in the info category, called challenge outages, that we are going to post about if something goes down. It's an inevitable fact. It will happen. But, you know, if you find something wrong, you know, if you're for some reason able to delete a flag file from a server, just don't do it. Like, there's nothing else I can say to that. Just don't do it. Hopefully that's not going to happen. But but if it does, just don't do anything like that. So for any online challenges like a website, you're not going to have to run online enumeration. You won't have to run dirbuster or anything like that. For some offline challenges with a file, you might have to run like an offline brute forcing tool, you know, anything like John the Ripper, RockU, that kind of stuff. For anything like that, it will typically tell you in the description. But basically, just as a rule of thumb, don't think that you need to use an enumeration tool for an online challenge. So that's mostly just going to be web ones. I think that is it for me. So unless you have anything else, Nash, we can hand it off to Anton.
Do you want to do the ticket demo now, or
Oh, I can demo it if you like to. Sure. So I will share my screen. Actually, I hope everybody's able to see my. I don't know if there's a cap on how many people can see a screen, but everybody wants to take a look at my screen here. Just give 15 seconds while people open it up here. It is very straightforward, and it's actually gonna look a little different from my screen.
Canada. A lot of people ask how to pronounce it. I think it's Larez, but Layers is fine too. I obviously work with Lee and the Y and a bunch of other talented, awesome individuals that work at Larez and our other teams. I love really anything DFIR, SIM, Blue Team, log, query, detection, anything that falls in that kind of category. I'm all over it. So if you guys have Twitter, give me a follow, hit me up anytime. I'm always down to chat. Pretty much any medium, but a phone call, I'm happy to take. I hate the phone, but if you want to get in touch, hit me up anytime. To start off, I just wanted to get this question out there. You know, how did we get here? And by we, I mean like the big we. Like, how did humans get here to the point of all sitting online on Discord, kind of like doing a CTF together? I think it's at first when I was making these slides, like this question's so cheesy, and I admit it's like super cheesy, like I'm some kind of like Harvard professor or something. But I promise there's a point to the question, and we'll kind of be coming back to this question, throughout the rest of this short keynote. So before we learned, how to do CTFs, how to use computers, we had to learn how to write. And again, by we, I mean like human beings had to learn how to write. And humans first started writing in a cuneiform about 5,000 years ago. And scribes would take a reed, like a plant, and they would mark these clay tablets that were soft, and then they would bake them in an oven to harden them. And these clay tablets obviously survived, and archaeologists dig them up today. And this is kind of like a big deal, right, in our kind of human journey, because it means that information now can be passed on generation to generation in a written form. So we went from kind of the oral tradition where we would pass on, stories and myths and culture and things like that, orally, to passing that same information, or even more information in a written form. So this is kind of like a big deal in our journey from like walking upright to being articulate, to being able to articulate what a blockchain is, or being able to participate in a CTF. And then 2,500 years after that, after we started making clay tablets with reeds, we started to think about thinking, and thinking about how it is that we learn. So this lovely bust here is of Plato, and Plato had a theory called epistemology, which in a super simplified form kind of posits or states that we're kind of born with all the knowledge that we'll ever have. So we don't really learn things, we just kind of like recall things that we were already born with. So his ideas were that humans are born with knowledge, and as we get older we recall that knowledge. So we're not really learning, we're kind of remembering. And this is kind of a big deal because it's again like the first time that we actually started to think about thinking. So kind of like metadata, which is data about data. This is sort of like metadata of the human mind, right? So we're not just thinking, A, B, C. We're actually thinking about how it is that we think. And of course, like this theory today, sitting here in like 2022, it kind of sounds ridiculous, right? Because we know that we're not born with innate knowledge. Babies don't know about blockchain, and we constantly generate new knowledge. So if we're generating new knowledge as we go, that kind of logically means that we can't possibly know everything there is to know as soon as we're born. So again, like you kind of see these like road markers, right, where we start to write, then we start to think, and then fast forwarding a few thousand years, we have the light bulb, which lit up cities in the 1800s. And this is important because we kind of have the tools now that cover writing, information, thought, and electricity. And these are kind of all the little elements that we need to start to begin to work with like machines and computers, and be able to like process information electronically, right? You need obviously electricity for that. So 150 years after the light bulb, we have this bad boy, which is the first desktop calculator introduced in 1961. This is the Anita MK8 by the Bell Punch Company, which I assume doesn't exist anymore. And it cost about $1,000 in 1964, which is a cool 10 grand in today's money. And if anyone's like a mechanical keyboard nerd like I am, I bet you're just looking at this picture, just wanting to like clack every one of those buttons and get a really good sense of exactly how they click and how they perform. So that's all I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this image. And I hope I'm not the only not the only nerd that thinks about this kind of stuff. So right after we invented writing, thinking, learning, light bulbs, the calculator, we started inventing InfoSec certifications. And this image is from the Security Certification Roadmap. There's about 400 certifications listed here. It's $399 as of July 2021. I assume that a few more have kind of popped up since then. And of course, you look at this image and it's like super overwhelming. At least I get overwhelmed looking at it. And each certification here, can potentially mean like years of experience to learn a particular technology. So it's really clear that it's just physically and mentally impossible to absorb this much information. You know what I mean? Like, not even Plato could do it. I think. I don't know him personally, but I don't know any human being alive that can just absorb, this much. 400 different certifications across, a numerous amount of different areas that you see at the top there. So what does this mean? Like, why am I going over all this? Boring everyone to death with human history and things like that. I think that if we look at things from a historical perspective like this, we could potentially derive some kind of comfort from the fact that when we look at the big we, and that's like humans, we're all kind of new at this, and we're all learning, and we're all trying to keep up. Even things like electricity and calculators themselves are kind of new to us, let alone the internet, blockchains, Active Directory, Kubernetes, CTF, so all those things. So even the like foundational concepts that make up the technology that we use today, like the technology itself is new, but the concepts themselves are also new to us, and by us again, I mean like us humans. So the message that I kind of want to get across is that if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling that you're not learning enough, that's fine, because all of us feel this way, and that's okay. I think we need to get comfortable with that idea that nobody knows everything, and nobody knows everything because A, it's impossible to, and B, it's because all of this is very new to us. It took me years, to come to these realizations, because I'm kind of dense and not super smart, so I learned slow. But this kind of stuff has given me a little bit of zen as I kind of navigate my career. And kind of like the rest of this talk is some other lessons that I kind of learned along the way. And I should note that just because I'm sharing these lessons, just because I'm talking about them, it does not mean that I mastered them by any means. Like I said, we're all in this together. We're all learning, trying to become better, trying to further our careers, things like that. And that includes, obviously, myself as well. This banner that I have here from this is not my image. I just want to make clear it's from compassionatecoding.com, and at April Wenzel is the person who made it. Great follow on Twitter if you're into that kind of thing. I've had this banner up on other talks that I did for ISSessions. So this is not the first time I've included it. And it's come up multiple times, but it's been these kind of guiding principles or little points have really been kind of like career and life-changing to me. And I think these are values that are just incredibly important, especially these days where the world's on fire. To that first point there for humility, we've seen how many areas of InfoSec exists. That chart with 400 certifications. So it's impossible to become an expert in everything. So just assume by default that everyone that you meet is technical and capable. It's just that they might be technical and capable in areas that are not ones that you're an expert in. The second point there, inclusion and inclusive thinking, it's not just a buzzword. It's incredibly important in modern workplaces. Not everyone has the same gender identity. Not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone communicates in the same way. Not everyone has the same values and goals that you do. So inclusive thinking and inclusion are just super important concepts to grasp. Cooperation is incredibly important. If you ever done like a C3X event or any other CTF, or have spent any amount of time at a corporate office, you just know how important cooperation is. It's just a critical skill to have. To the second last point there, InfoSec generally is just filled with incredibly smart people. But just take as a given that we're all smart. But that mental switch from I'm smart to I'm learning is just an incredibly powerful switch. And I would strongly really urge you to take the approach of, I could learn something from everyone. So even if someone's, more junior than you, maybe has been in the industry less than you, that doesn't mean that you can't learn anything from them. So if you go in with the mindset of, I want to learn something from this person, you will. And in turn, that'll make, both of you more learned. That last point there, InfoSec generally has a rockstar problem, but having worked at Larez for a couple of years now, and having worked with a lot of different clients across different industries, I could tell you that some of the smartest people in this industry have like zero social media presence. So just because you see someone who's like, posting on Twitter, has followers, is doing their spiel, that doesn't mean that they're, any better or less than or someone who doesn't have that kind of social media following. Not just some people just don't want to participate in it, and that's perfectly valid and fine. So going from being a rock star to being a mentor, again, I just think an incredibly powerful dynamic. Some other things that I've kind of learned, lifting people up is critically important. Personally, I have a super low self-esteem. I was bullied a ton when I was younger because I'm heavier, and kids are mean, and I just have a low self-esteem. So when I was getting into InfoSec, more seriously and becoming quote unquote an InfoSec professional, and then some of my colleagues and friends in the industry would tell me like, hey man, you're doing cool. Like, this is a cool blog, this is a cool query, it's a cool knowledge thing that you're dropping. That meant at the time a huge deal to me. It meant the world. And it takes almost nothing to give someone a compliment, but it can make a huge impact to them. So definitely something worth highlighting. To that second point there, the industry and life in general is unfortunately filled with haters, who just can't stand to see people win. And if you're a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, you kind of already know this quote. I have it in my head all the time because, we're all kind of adults and we have responsibilities that we need to meet. And sometimes it's perfectly fine to actually ignore someone or to go ahead and forge your own path. So ignoring advice is an option, and learning which advice to ignore is critical. Sorry. There's just a lot of noise in InfoSec, and again, some people are haters, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, is that sometimes people don't have your best interests at heart. So just keep that in mind whenever you're hearing advice, or whenever you hear like the latest InfoSec thought leader drop knowledge on Twitter that you take personally. Just examine that advice critically. The third point there, if you've ever used someone's work or found it helpful, you always have the option of contacting that person, in a professional manner. And it can mean a lot to that person. It can also mean a good networking opportunity for you, to build your network, to have contacts that you can reach out to for help. That's something that I learned later in my career, how to actually network with people and build a network of folks that you can reach out to that can help you. And it's super important. And this is something that I've definitely lagged on. So if you're not doing this, don't feel so bad. Just start whenever you're able. The second last point there to learning. Learning in InfoSec is just not linear. And what that means is that you won't get everything the second you read it. Sometimes, you need more context, you need more information, you need more time to understand those concepts. So be patient, keep hustling, and you'll be an encyclopedia of knowledge in no time. Just remember that we literally started all this by making marks in clay tablets, with plants. So just be patient. You'll get there. To the last point, tech stuff is great. Being kind makes impact. That latest exploit that you wrote or that awesome query that you shared is fantastic. But unfortunately, very few people will remember that. However, if you're an asshole or if you're difficult, people will 1000% remember that. So just keep that in mind as you go. The tech stuff, I know it's important. Everyone, has to know their stuff, and know the bits and bytes and assembly and all that. Super important. But again, being kind is the thing that'll make an impact to a person, and that will make the person remember you. Almost rounding third here. The first bullet point in the slide is the dynamic that I've kind of seen with more junior folks who rightfully identify issues with networks, processes, and just kind of leave it at that. You kind of need to take that next step, and that next step is offering some kind of solution. And then the next step after that second step is actually coming up with a plan to implement the solution that you offered, and then actually implementing that solution. So the more that you can cover that kind of cycle professionally, the more value that you're going to have to your organization. So again, identifying a problem is awesome, it's cool, but offering a solution is just that much cooler. Boundaries are incredibly important. These can be professional boundaries or they could be personal boundaries. Setting them is healthy, and learning to communicate your boundaries in a kind and professional manner will help you throughout the journey, both in your work life and your personal life. Some people in the InfoSec world live and breathe InfoSec. That's just a fact. It's just the virtue of the industry that we're in. Other people see it as a 9-to-5 and have other hobbies and passions, and both are fine. Both are okay. Every person has different ideas as to what counts as work, and some people, really enjoy coding for 12 hours straight. Some people want to go home at 4:30, and both are okay. Just remember that we're all in this industry together for at least a few decades before we retire. So it's okay to pace yourself. And the other thing I'll mention too is that there may be some points in your career where your head's down coding for 12 hours straight, and then there might be other points in your career where you don't want to do that. You have other things to do. You have a family. You have other projects. You have friends that you want to hang out with, and both are fine. So it's okay if InfoSec is just not your lifestyle. It also is okay if it is. But both those things are valid. Both are okay. To the last point there, in our modern capitalist society, a person's profession becomes a large part of their social identity. And it also becomes a measure of their self-worth. So just remember that you're more than your job. Your work is valid, even if you don't work for a marquee company. Some of the best work that I've done in my career was for just a tiny insurance company that nobody knows exists. So just because you're not working at a fancy company, it doesn't mean that your work is not valid. So to close off, when you're doing your CTF awesomeness today, try to help someone out. It'll help you learn, and it'll help you kind of like establish relationships and build your knowledge as well. So it's really a win-win. Try to give someone a compliment, and I don't mean hey, you have nice hair. Not like a true valid compliment. I think definitely goes a long way with people. Patience, understanding, super important, especially when you're dealing with computers. This is something I need to tell myself all the time too. When you're trying to get something working and it just refuses to work, and you just want to like throw your computer out the window. Just try to be patient and understanding. It'll help you de-stress. It'll help you have more fun. It'll help you absorb more knowledge and things like that. Same with compassion. If you see someone like struggling, don't think that, hey, this person doesn't know anything, or doesn't know CTFs or isn't technical or something like that. You never know what people are going through. And especially these days where there's literally like the world's on fire, that people are maybe don't have 100% of their focus on InfoSec and things like that. So showing a little bit of compassion, giving people some leeway goes a long way. And finally, sharing knowledge. I'm a huge proponent of this. When I was more junior and coming up in InfoSec, everything I learned was from other people. So giving that back is becoming important to me. So the more you're able to share, the more you can benefit both yourself and the person that you're sharing with. And that's it. That's all I had for today. So again, thank you very much for having me. I hope everyone has a fantastic CTF. And like I said, if you ever want to get in touch, I'm open. I think my DMs are open, so just hit me up anytime. And thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anton. And with that, I'm just waiting for confirmation that the challenges are open.